Welcome back to the show. It's now time for People's Senior Royals Editor Michelle Tauber. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, Sharon. I'm great. Thank you.
Great to see you. Now, Michelle, this December is obviously the end of the year, but it's also the end of the decade. You've been covering the Royals this whole time, so there's no one better than you to give us the top 10 Royal stories of the past 10 years. Okay, here we go. Your top 10 Royal stories of the decade. At number 10, the recent announcement from Prince Andrew that he's stepping back from public duties for the foreseeable future. Michelle, this is obviously a huge story this year, but why do you think it deserves to make the decade list?
Yeah, the reason this one made my top 10 is that it was so unprecedented to see a senior royal make the decision to effectively resign from royal life, royal duty. That sent shockwaves through the whole family. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see as the fallout continues, whether or not, when he first announced that he was leaving, he said it was for the foreseeable future. And I think the sentiment right now is that it's going to be even longer than that. And he has his daughter's wedding coming up next year. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how high of a profile he has for that too. So that story is certainly not at all done. And I think it's been really fascinating to watch it unfold.
It certainly will. Okay, moving on to number 9, Prince Philip's retirement in 2017. Over 7 decades, Philip carried out royal duties on behalf of 780 organizations. So his time away, definitely well earned. But why was it such a huge story when it happened?
Yeah, not many 96-year-olds still working at the same job that they took on in this case, 1952.
Wow.
So Prince Philip ended his tenure as the longest serving consort in British history. He's the consort to the Queen, which is sort of like, her backup, her partner. It was really remarkable because he served that tenure sort of as you would expect from a military man, pretty stoically and unwaveringly. And seeing him leave, it was a real, end of an era.
Okay, at number 8, the 2018 wedding of Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank. We all love royal weddings, of course, so I'm thrilled this one made your list, Michelle. In your eyes, what made it so memorable?
This wedding was such a delight. It came after Meghan and Harry's wedding a few months later. And of course, that wedding had, been a really big royal event. And we weren't expecting sort of all of the charm that came with Eugenie and Jack's wedding. One of the moments that stood out the most for me was the fact that Eugenie chose to show off the scoliosis surgical scar that she had from her youth with a dress that was low cut in the back. And my other favorite moment from that wedding was when her sister, Princess Beatrice, gave a reading at the pulpit, and she's had a very public struggle with dyslexia, and it was a very triumphant moment and a very sweet and personal moment as well.
Very inspiring. Okay, number 7, the Queen's cameo in the opening ceremony of the 2012 London Olympics on NBC. I love this. This might be one of the most surprising moments of the decade too. Michelle, just how shocked were you to see the Queen and her corgis appear alongside James Bond 007 himself, and to get a glimpse into her more playful side?
I mean, I was shaken and stirred. It was a fun, unexpected, for sure, moment from a woman who lives her life extremely guarded, obviously, extremely by the book. And this was her letting her royal hair down, so to speak. And that moment that we're seeing her, where she's sitting with her back to the camera, I think many people thought, oh, it's a stand-in, it's a double for the Queen. And then when she turns around right there and you see it's actually Her Majesty with James Bond, it was a great thrill.
Yeah, quite the stunt woman, and I'm sure that was Lofi in that video as well. Number 6 takes us all the way back to 2010, Prince William and Kate Middleton's royal engagement. Of course, the couple have been dating on and off for 8 years, so this wasn't much of a surprise, but obviously still a huge moment. What do you remember most about this story?
Well, for me, by far, the standout moment from their engagement was the engagement interview they did after announcing that they were going to be married. And when Kate held up her ring finger and showed that she was wearing the sapphire ring that had belonged to Princess Diana, I think we all felt a really emotional tug. And William in the interview said, "My mother couldn't be here, so I wanted to make sure she was present in a different way." And it was poignant. It was beautiful. We saw the two of them sort of giddy over, recalling the details of the engagement. William admitting that he had to work up his nerve, his courage to pop the question, and they even addressed the fact that they had a significant breakup along the way. And Kate acknowledged that it was a time that she was able to find herself. So it's about as revealing as we've ever seen them, even since then.
Very real moment. Okay, number 5, another royal engagement, the 2017 announcement from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. What can you tell us about the day this story broke, and just how different was it from William and Kate's?
Yes, this is the roast chicken engagement. So if Kate and William were the African safari engagement, we got to see Meghan and Harry recall that their engagement took place in their cozy cottage back when they were still living in Kensington Palace. With Harry on one knee as Meghan cooked her signature roast chicken. But in a bigger picture way, we were seeing the realization of the most unlikely royal romance in generations, which is Harry falling for an American actress. And certainly around the office, it was a pretty busy day.
Yeah, it was awesome. Okay, moving on to number 4, the birth of baby Archie. This was just 7 months ago. What stands out to you most from that day?
For me, the standout moment was Harry speaking at the stables at Windsor just hours after Archie's birth. They hadn't even decided on the name yet. And it was the most giddy, joyful, just sort of unabashed bliss I've ever seen from Prince Harry, or any royal for that matter. And he was sort of gushing in ways that you could so relate to any new dad. He was saying things like, I can't comprehend how any woman could ever do this. And, I'm so over the moon. Archie's just this incredible little thing. And it was true new dad pride and joy. It was really wonderful to see.
It was. Okay, number 3, we have a 3-way tie here, because how can you pick between the births of George, Charlotte and Louis? Obviously, George's birth was huge since he'll be the future king, but why were all 3 of these days just so important?
Yes, no favorites here. So it was really remarkable to be able to see the start of the next generation of royals, and that began with George, who of course is first in line in terms of succession behind William. And that was a historic and thrilling moment. It was also the arrival of Princess Diana's first grandchild. And again, there was a lot of poignancy about the fact that she would never get to meet that grandson, and how much she would have loved that. We spoke with many of her friends at the time who said she just would have truly delighted in becoming a grandmother. And then with Charlotte, we got a princess, which we haven't had for at least a generation. And again, such a fun new era for the royal family. And then to watch them expand their family yet again with Prince Louis, I think really cemented William and Kate in terms of, sort of assuming the status of the future king and queen. Their families really gelling. They're juggling, almost as many children as the queen. They're one short. But it felt like the actualization of their family, and it felt really complete and robust, which was fun.
Now, we actually don't have a number 2 because there's a 2-way tie for number 1. By far, the 2 biggest stories of the decade were the 2 royal weddings, Will and Kate's in 2011, Harry and Meghan's in 2018. Michelle, what do you remember most from covering these enormous events?
How stressed out I was. But yeah, you cannot top a royal wedding. They are the ultimate in royal pomp and pageantry. And with William and Kate, again, we had watched for 8 years. Royals fans had been anticipating this big moment. For me personally, that wedding, the standout moment was the camaraderie between the brothers, between William and Harry. You saw William's nerves. You saw Harry being kind of playful and lighthearted and supportive of his big brother. And then, of course, just how ravishing and exquisite it was to see Kate, the next generation of princess. Then over to Meghan and Harry. I mean, how on earth could it get better than seeing an American princess, become part of the world's most historic and most celebrated royal family. And I think in that case, it was really obviously a real joy to see how much of the service was infused with Meghan's African American heritage. We all remember the incredible sermon by Reverend Curry, and the marriage of their two cultures. So both impossible to choose, as you say, and both truly memorable, spectacular events.
Thanks so much, Michelle, for helping us relive so many great moments.
Thank you, Sharon.